All right, welcome back to Tutoring 56. We've just finished the science experiment and a little field trip with the kindergarten students where they go out and they find the pine cones and they gather a whole bunch of pine cones for themselves that they can bring back to the class. And the math activity was to do sorting, which is science and math connected. But then, of course, it's little people and we like to do stuff with it. So one of the things I suggested is that when they've done their sorting is to let the students take one of the open pine cones and start pulling them apart. Literally just let them rip these things apart. And some students will be, there's sap on the one I've got in my hand. They might go, ooh, that's sticky. Then that's fine. But I am sure you'll find students that have absolutely no problem ripping these things apart. And that's okay. Okay? Now what can we do with them? After they've explored it and they've taken it all apart, I came up with a nice little arty project. So again, we're going to combine these various subjects and bring them all together. Now, if you're a homeschooler, now I'm just using 8.5 by 12 piece of paper. I'm using blue. You can use whatever you want. If you're a classroom teacher, it would be really nice if you had a bulletin board covered in white and the students could do this on a bigger scale. And they can make trees and they could attach some of the smaller pine cones that I showed you yesterday onto the trees. So what I'm going to do is show you my art project on what I would use if I was homeschooling somebody, just not a bulletin board. Now, if you've got the space and you're a homeschooler and they could do it on a wall and you've got great big, I call it experience chart paper, but it's that great big paper that primary classes have that they write on. It's got lines on them. Sometimes you can get them blank. Sometimes you get them in grid, whatever. Use whatever you want. Do whatever you want. I'm just going to use an 8.5 by 11 just to give you some idea. So just give me 30 seconds so I can... Okay, so what we have here is I have good old-fashioned pine cone. I've got one that's already open because the closed ones are very, very difficult to open. And you might also be able to, even though they're kindergartens or 4 and 5s, pliers are not going to hurt them. They squeeze too hard, they're going to go ouchy. But you may have to give a couple of lessons, especially in the classroom versus homeschoolers, about proper use of pliers, as in you're not grabbing anybody else. Because 4 and 5-year-olds don't honestly understand how strong they are. And using pliers will allow those students who don't like the stickies of sap, because then you got to wash your hands afterwards, I will concede. And just going to take these and rip them apart. And you can see I'm already starting to get a little gathering of my pine cones. Now I'm going to tell you right now from experience, start at the bottom of the pine cone, okay? Sorry about some of these angles here, folks. I'm so used to looking at my monitor to make sure that this is turning out the way I want it to look. I keep forgetting to look at the camera. Okay, so I've just torn off a pile here. Obviously, you're just going to tear off. Now, you're going to tear off the amount you need. And you can see that as you're doing this, they're going to end up with the stem and the end of it. Like, that's it. Now, a couple of ways you can do this. Actually, it's an art project, so you can do whichever way you want. As you're going through it, have the students look to see if they can actually see the seeds. Now, this one has been open and was on the ground at my property for a while, so I am not surprised that I'm not finding any seeds. Okay. There, I've just taken off some. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on this. Next, this is experience screaming. Encourage your students to draw a rough in first of what they want their fall picture, or if you're doing this closer to Christmas or whatever, how they want their picture to look. So I'm just going to do something really basic here, and I'm going to have just a nice little tree here with a couple of branches coming off there. And I like to balance things. Since I'm not artistically inclined, took a couple courses and go always with, I want things in threes. Now, since these are going to be basically evergreen trees, my base is going to look like that. Let's turn this around so you, okay. That's what it's going to look like. Nice and simple. Again, encourage them to draw roughs on what they want. And then maybe you want some mountains in the background or some hills. So you draw the hills. And I'm going to go with the sun setting. Or maybe it's rising. And there's my hill. And then coming out of the hill, maybe there is a road. That's going to come in and end up being between two trees. All right. So again, turn it around so you can see that that's what it's going to look like. Nice and simple, nothing fancy. Like I've said in previous videos, I'm not artistically inclined, but B, I've learned from experience to make my base drawing samples for the students to be really simplistic, because it helps those students who are not artistically inclined at all to feel like it's something they can accomplish. And with art, because it's self-expression, we want to encourage them to try. All right. So next, what we're going to do is we are going to say, all right, I want to paint things. Now, what I use here for my projects is Dollarama Special. Okay, guys? Just because I spend a lot of money on my school stuff, so wherever I can find a savings, I do it. Okay. So I got a little brown here. And I'm going to paint in my trees. So I'm going to just hit pause on the camera until I get this painted, and we'll show you what it looks like finished, semi-finished. Okay, so here we go. I've painted up my base picture, a couple of hills, the sun setting or rising, pick and choose, and my three basic trees in the bottom. While I have said that I make a point of not making it overly fancy, I do try to do as neat a job as possible, so that, especially with my older students, they don't start going, well, I don't have to do it really carefully. I want to encourage them to be neat. I want to encourage them to stretch their creativity, so I would be neater than I am in this one. One of the things you might find, I'm not sure that 4 and 5-year-olds could do it, but they can definitely try, is if they just outline with a marker the outside of the tree. First of all, that helps with fine motor control. Eye-hand coordination of watching video games is not the same as fine motor control. So if any of you are out there wondering, yes, you should be teaching your kid cursive writing. But that's another video for also. Okay, so this is not neat. Please, if you're doing this with your students, encourage them to be neater. Okay, now that we've got that, you can see that the black marker helps bring the tree out from the background. Now, I just grabbed blue as my background because that's what I had. Okay, and I was just reaching around. Now you're going to take these little guys, these pine cone tips, and you'll notice that there is a curve to the pine cone part, right? Like it literally, let me see if I can get, you can see that it has, it's bump, it's not flat. So of course, obviously, you want to encourage your students to put the glue on the side that sticks up. Put a little glue there, and then start gluing it down. Now, classroom teachers, if you are going to do this as a bulletin board, do it on the floor at the end of the day so it can have the evening to dry. If you're a homeschooler doing this at home, do it on a flat surface so it's got a chance to dry. Because the weight of these little pine conies pieces will fall off if you don't make a point. Because while they're not heavy to you and I, they are heavy. Now, if you look at this one, I think I can get it on camera. It has a whole piece sticking up, and you may find you have to straighten it a little bit for the students so that it will lie flat. Nothing's more frustrating for anybody when you start a project and it's not working out the way it should be. Okay, so we've got 3 though there, and we're just going to keep doing this. Nice little extra piece of math here because we're going to work up in symmetrical system. Okay, I've got another one that doesn't, I think it's going to do its thing. All right. Now, doing this right in front of you so you can see that sometimes it doesn't magically, so you may have to put a little extra Elmer's glue all. For those of you in a whole kindergarten class, you may want to have a lesson on how to use Elmer's glue all, like the liquid kind, or any white glue, because for sake of cleanliness, preschools tend to use glue sticks because it's cleaner. I don't blame them. However, this is not going to work if you use a glue stick. We need that little bit of glue that's going to sneak into bits. So you can see what I'm doing here. Elmer's glue or white glue will end up drying completely clear, so you shouldn't have any problems with that. I'm going to speed up the process. And for your little 4 and 5-year-olds who have little to no patience, that just might be a suggestion. Okay? Last but not least, put a glue bead there. Oh, I missed a branch. Okay? Yep. He doesn't want to sit flat. Let's get him flat. Okay. There. And we've created a little tree. I'm going to just hopefully hold it up a little bit so you can see what it looks like. Okay. Now, you are going to let that dry before you do the next step. But just to get this together, if this is a fall activity, this would be quite all right. Like this is more than enough. Like this would be a nice project. It could look nice on a bulletin board or the wall or whatever. If you're doing this in December and Christmas is right around the corner and you're looking for wintry activities, since as a classroom teacher, I have never really pushed religious-oriented seasons. Christmas, I make it all about winter. Christmas tree is something my students would put up outside, and they'd put things on it that would feed the birds. Okay? Down here in Southern Ontario, it's because I'm dealing with multicultures, many, many cultures. And up north, it's because it's wintertime. Okay, so what you can do is have the students paint their trees. Now, I am being very careful and I'm not having a whole lot of success here because everything's wet. Okay. There we go. I'm only doing one. Let me get another one over here. Oh. Okay. There you go, quick and easy. It would be a full art period for kindergarten students, for them to figure out what's going on and how to do it. But there's one activity. The other one you can do is, let me quietly, carefully remove this one to the floor. And I'm going to pull out my next piece of paper, which I'm going to go with white this time. And I'm not going to glue it, I'm just going to show you. Have them just create designs and glue it on. And in this particular case, if it is, because that's a very large piece of paper for a 4 or 5-year-old, because they do tend to think they have to fill up the whole piece of paper. I've got a whole piece of paper, I have to fill it up. If you just divide it in half, and this would work out just, of course this isn't going to cooperate for me, okay? This can make a really nice card. You're going to see what I'm going to do here. We're going to take it and cut it in half, and then fold it. Teachers, you're going to have to do this beforehand, because 25 little people. Okay, so now you've got this little card that sits right there, like this, and your students are going to make the front of the card, and then they can practice their printing by saying, I love you, or happy holidays, or anything they want on the inside. But they can practice their printing. Again, do it in pencil first. Okay, so then they can take this and they can use these little pieces of pine cones to create any design. So they're not looking this time to create something that's in nature. They're just using them. Again, you will find ones that don't want to, so, because it is wood, guys. Okay, and they can, once they have figured it out, helps with planning, lets me figure out what design I want, and then once they're sure of the design, then they can just glue it on. Okay, so there's a couple of artsy ideas that the kids can do if they want. This one, they don't need to paint it. What they can do beforehand is paint all pretty colors on here, or use markers to draw a design, and then use the pine cones to supplement or support what the design is on the paper. All right, there we go. Relatively easy. Kindergarten students, 4 and 5-year-olds will love it, because it's something that they're not trying to paint Da Vinci. They can let their creativity go and their expression go, and it's going to be fine. It's going to be beautiful. Mums and dads will love it, and they'll be proud of it. So there you go. There's 2 ideas. Hopefully you like it. This is only the start. You can obviously come up with other designs where they're going to use the bits and pieces from the pine cones themselves and decorate their creation whichever way they want. It is very difficult. I've got one here that getting a whole pine cone is not going to lie very flat. It'll stick out too much. So you may get students going, can I glue the whole thing on there? I would not say no, but I would discourage it. Just with the honey, it's not going to lie flat if we put it in an envelope. Or when you take it home in your backpack, it's not going to lie flat. So those are my suggestions. If you're a homeschooler, go for it. It's not like they have to transport it anywhere, so they could literally be coming up with, this one's a little big. Something else I did find when I was doing this, if you have any pine needles, as they're picking up their pine cones, if they've got pine needles, they could be adding those to their design or the decoration, and that will go for that picture too that I just finished drawing. There you go, guys. You've got one video about science experiments for kindergarten students dealing with pine cones, and the second video here about just a couple of quick art craft ideas that the students can do that they can have lots and lots of fun with, and you're encouraging them to bring the things they saw outside into real world and connecting it to art and having fun with it and expressing their creativity that goes with it. All right, now if anybody notices, there's always music in the background, and that's because I don't get anything done if I don't have music in the background, but each to their own. All right, there you go. I hope you really enjoyed it, and Leave any comments in the bottom underneath if there's any other ideas that you'd like to see, or tell me if you liked it or you didn't like it, etc. Please remember to hit like and subscribe. Have a good day.